What's going on, YouTube? JT's Reborn here, and welcome back to another edition of After the Movie. So I'm recording this a few days after Christmas because I did see this film on December 25th. I'm, of course, talking about Wonder Woman 1984. That's right, this is the sequel to the 2017 Wonder Woman film. It was directed by Patty Jenkins, stars Gal Gadot, Chris Pine, Pedro Pascal, and Kristen Wiig as Cheetah. So I was pretty excited to see this film a few months ago. But kind of like with all the different delays, it got to the point where I was just kind of like, you know what? I'm just like, I feel like excitement, like if you kind of like release trailers sometimes too early and then like you just keep getting delayed and delayed and delayed and delayed, just kind of thrown in your face after a while, you kind of start to lose interest. That was kind of me at this film, but I still was excited to watch this thing on Christmas Day. It's on HBO Max. It's also in theaters if you wanted to see it then. But I figured it's Christmas Day. I don't really want to go out and do anything. If this were any other day, like if this were like, January, February, I'd rather probably just go see this in the theater. But since I already got HBO Max, I'm like, it's Christmas Day. I'm going to be in my PJs. I'm going to be a lazy son of a bitch. I'm going to watch Wonder Woman 1984. And I ended up watching this twice that day, and I ended up having like kind of a DC EU marathon. I watched basically every film in the whole universe. I think I just need to rewatch Suicide Squad, but I don't want to because, well, it's Suicide Squad. But yeah, so, and next year we have Zack Snyder's Justice League coming out, so I am looking forward to that because rewatching the 2017 film and just seeing kind of what it looks like, because I did enjoy that film initially the first time I saw it, because, I went to kind of like an advanced press type screening, and I met some really awesome people, had the crowd interaction. It was a lot of fun going there. So, but watching it now, I'm just like, ooh, God, did I have positive thoughts about this thing? What was I thinking? But anyways, so Wonder Woman 1984 is finally out, and it's gotten kind of a very interesting response online. It's a bit of a divisive movie, believe it or not. Like the first wave of reactions like, oh, it's great, it's all these things. But as more people got to see it, they started to realize, yeah, there's definitely some issues with this film. And I'm kind of in one of those boats where it's just like, there's the I love this film, there's the I hate this film category. I fall kind of somewhere more along the lines in the middle. I'm kind of mixed on this film overall. I watched it twice, and I wanted to wait a few days to kind of like record this thing and, kind of let my thoughts settle in. But I just have to say it. I'm kind of mixed on this film. At most, I think the film is fine. Definitely not the best film ever made. Definitely not the worst film ever made. It's a very mixed kind of movie for me. Whereas the first film, I quite enjoyed a lot, kind of just for the most part, outside of maybe the third act. But, as I watched it more, I've kind of come around a little bit more to the third act of the original Wonder Woman. But I still don't really, love it as much. But again, there's some really great stuff in the first Wonder Woman movie. I mean, Gal Gadot and Chris Pine's on-screen chemistry. The No Man's Land sequence is obviously the most talked about aspect of the film. It's a very iconic movie scene where she steps onto the battlefield and she inspires those around her, and that's a really good heroic thing. So this time around, she's quite different. They're not doing more of the warrior per se. They're doing kind of like the more, what's the word I'm looking for? There's different aspects to Wonder Woman. This one, she's definitely, I'd say, she's a little more heroic and kind of inspiring per se. Like, she's not trying to kill anyone this time around. In fact, does she kill anyone? No, like she deliberately goes out of her way to save and help people. Even people are trying to kill her. She uses the lasso. She does not use her sword and shield this time around. She's definitely changed from the first film, and I like that. I respect that she's not trying to kill anybody, but she's going out of her way to show that, okay, I can save people this way. And again, it kind of like sometimes gets a little bit, there's kind of a bit of hokiness. Like the first act of this film, like the first action sequence in the mall, it's very, very goofy. And I'm just kind of thinking, like, am I watching, like, it's like going beyond a Sam Raimi level Spider-Man film and cheesiness. It's kind of like mimicking more Christopher Reeve's Superman, but not necessarily the Richard Donner stuff. I'm talking more Richard Lester per se, like Superman 3, where it just gets really, really hokey at some points in the film, and you're just left wondering, like, what is going on? This is such a different contrast to the first film. But again, I'm kind of appreciative when sequels kind of do other things, kind of do different tones, but this is a very jarring change from the first film. And again, I respect that, but sometimes it just gets to be a little bit too much, even for me. I mean, I like cheesiness, but it's gonna kind of have to be a sense of fun. Like, sometimes it just looks kind of like almost too kind of dumb at times. But yeah, so what works about this film more than the first film for me? Again, I'm going to have to make some comparisons and then kind of judge it on its own thing. But the thing that this film does improve on from the first film are the villains this time around. I thought Maxwell Lord was pretty solid. Pedro Pascal is great. Life is good, but it can be better. That's become a bit of an internet meme over the past couple days. It's been flooding my Twitter stuff that I follow. So I do appreciate that. Again, every scene that he's on screen, you're left pretty engaged. They said they modeled him a bit after like a Gordon Gekko from Wall Street, and you definitely can see that within the film and within his performance. He's a very different type of villain. Because again, the theme of this film is more about truth. If you can kind of put it together that way, because the plot of this one is there's this thing called the Dreamstone. And now the Dreamstone is kind of like the monkey's paw effect, where you can wish for your heart's like most desire, and you'll get your wish in kind of a mischievous way, but it'll also come at a price. So for Maxwell Lord, he's gonna have, I think it's taken away. He wishes to become the Dreamstone. It's definitely kind of killing him. So, but like, he starts granting wishes, and he's trying to get something else in return, more power, more money, so that the world can kind of notice him, and his son will kind of be proud of him. He's finally getting his chance in the world, is the way he looks at it. He's just like, okay, I've been shit on kind of enough in life, and I finally want my turn. I want to be the center of attention. I want to have this, I want to have that, I want to have more, and yeah, so there's that. Barbara just wants to be strong and fierce and sexy like Diana is, and you see her kind of change, but it comes at a cost to her. Diana unintentionally kind of wishes for Steve Trevor to come back, and he comes back, but, oh, by the way, that caused some controversy too. We'll get into that a little bit, and it could have just, and again, that's kind of where some of my gripes come with the film, mostly is due to this Dreamstone and just kind of like how its powers work. Again, there feels like there's kind of scenes missing in this film, because then on the one hand, the Dreamstone, it'll bring somebody back from Steve Trevor, but he'll be brought back like possessing somebody's body for some reason, which I don't get why he can't just come back as himself. I don't get why he needed to possess somebody's body. I don't understand it. It caused way more controversy than it needs to, because him and Diana, they get it on at some point in the film. That's clearly implied, but he's possessing somebody else's body, and you have the whole thing of, okay, what about the person whose body's been possessed that's being used? And again, that is a valid point, and that's where the controversy is kind of surrounding this film is kind of like that. Like, did Wonder Woman just do that? And then you're left thinking, yeah, and you kind of think about it, it's not really like, why didn't they just have Steve Trevor come back as himself instead of possessing somebody else's body? So, because that makes that really awkward, because again, it just doesn't really add anything else. It's just like, what's really the point of that? Because when you see this wish thing, like, it's doing other things, like it's adding to nuclear missiles. Like, it's, some people are wishing for nuclear missiles. Nuclear missiles are just randomly popping up more than they had in their arsenal. It's able to form giant walls for some reason, but it can't bring him back from the dead, like in his own physical body. Because even at one point, he's just like, you want to be a real boy? Like when Pedro Pascal's Maxwell Lord talks to Steve Trevor, he's just like, you want to have your own body now? And I'm like, well, why the fuck didn't it do that before? Like, what's the point of him possessing somebody else's body? It just seems really dumb and kind of like a waste of time for me. Like, you could have solved some issues by having it be that way. Because again, it doesn't really like make a difference. Well, it does make a difference, but like, it doesn't really, the plot doesn't center around him possessing somebody else's body. It's not like there's kind of like him battling over in control. And also, what the hell happened to the other guy whose body he possessed? Like, what was the point of having him possess somebody's body when he can come back as himself? It's not like he's Dead Man or something in the comics doing it. So it just kind of bothered me a bit when I was watching the film. Like, and plus it's just, again, because the Dreamstone's able to do all these amazing things, why can't he just come back in his own physical body? It would have solved some issues. It would have made their reunion, I think, a little bit better when you see it in the film. But yeah, but again, Chris Pine still is a good actor, and him and Gal have some good chemistry. And there is a really good scene where she has to like kind of let him go in the film. I guess I'm gonna get into spoilers at this point, so if you haven't seen the film, I guess you can kind of skip this part. But overall consensus, again, there's some things that work about it, there's some things that don't work, and yeah, that's kind of where I'm at in terms of the film. Like, I didn't love it, I didn't hate it, I think it's fine at best. It's a little overlong. Action sequences are definitely not as good this time around as they were in the first film. There's no real big inspiring scene like the No Man's Land sequence. Some things just kind of happen, which leads me to believe that there were missing scenes in this film. Like, for instance, Diana has this armor that she shows up in. I'm like, okay, what's going on here? But there are some good enough things in this film which lets me say, okay, I can kind of recommend it, but just kind of barely, just enough to say, all right, I think it's worth checking out. You may like it, you may not like it, but it's definitely a step down from the first Wonder Woman film. Only real improvement this time around is in the villains, and again, I think a lot of that has to do with Pedro Pascal and Kristen Wiig and their roles in the film. Kristen Wiig's not as engaging as Pedro Pascal, but she's still fine. I think she works for the character that she's portraying. So that said, let's get into kind of spoilers like till the end of this thing, and I'll talk about some other aspects that I like in the film. So kind of when the movie opens up, they open up and Themyscira, there's a sequence with young Diana, and again, the actress is adorable doing her little things, but she gets into a situation where she kind of has to, she tries to cheat to win at a competition, and then Antiope just kind of drags her like, no, cheating's not the right way, it's a lie. And that's kind of where the theme of the movie comes in, where it's true. So then they kind of, again, the scene, that's what it's setting up, is the theme of the movie, but it doesn't really factor back in much more else in the plot. So that's, I understand why it's there, but it really doesn't factor too much else in other than to kind of showcase what the theme of the film is. Because again, people just want more, and it's all just a lie. So you got to kind of come to terms with that. And again, that's what a lot of the people have to kind of realize. That's why people are trying to renounce their wish in that. Like Diana, she's been, again, there's my favorite scene in there's a few scenes that I really like in the film. Favorite scenes usually involve Steve and Diana, where they're just there's one really nice touching scene where they get the invisible jet, which again, it just kind of happens at some point, and they're flying through the air and they're flying above. Steve Trevor's just what I really liked about the stuff with Steve Trevor is when he just kind of sees the world, and it goes to show that his sacrifice that he had in the first film had meaning. So he finally got a chance to see what his sacrifice meant. He got to spend a little extra time with Diana. And again, the stuff where they got they're flying, you see the fireworks. I like that scene. It's kind of a real moment between two people who definitely love and care for each other. And it's a very nice, touching scene. And I'm just sitting there, I'm just like, okay, I love scenes quieter moments like that in the film really work for me. The score by Hans Zimmer. Again, it's not his best score that he's done in the DCEU, but he definitely does some really good stuff with it too. I like how he brought back A Beautiful Lie, especially during the climax thing with Diana, where she has to use kind of the lasso of truth. Again, Maxwell Lord's powers are kind of a little bit wonky how they work, and I'm still trying to get a grasp on all of it. But I really like that scene. Even then, he has to renounce his wish because it's not the right thing to do, and he's seeing what all this want and just neediness and just because again, people want things and they're just so angry all the time, but they kind of have to calm themselves down a little bit and just kind of take a deep breath, and just seeing what this endless desire kind of drives people kind of mad a bit too. And it kind of drove Maxwell Lord a little bit mad, but again, he doesn't really face any consequences for all the stuff he does, now that I think about it. But he's, I guess, no longer seen as a loser to his son, so that's pretty cool. And again, Pedro Pascal is pretty fun as the villain this time around. Just every scene he's in, you're kind of engaged with what he's doing. Kristen Wiig as Cheetah, her wish kind of cost her a bit of her humanity, so she kind of becomes more animalistic. But it doesn't make sense why she becomes a freaking cheetah. The only thing that you see earlier on is she looks at Diana's boots and stuff. Why is she a cheetah? Just in the third act, okay, she already made her wish, but I guess she gets another one, and she's just I want to be an apex predator, and they're okay, you're a cheetah. The fuck, why is she a cheetah now? When did this happen in the movie? That felt kind of tacked on so we can get a third act action sequence. And the CGI, not that great. I understand they used some makeup and practical effects where they could, but the fight sequence between Diana and Cheetah, Diana shows up in this magic golden armor, which was worn by another Amazon, which was Linda Carter, which was a really cool little tidbit in the credits, which I like to see. It's this beautiful looking golden plated armor. But again, when she's chasing after Maxwell Lord and Cheetah in the air. She can fly now, and that apparently caused some controversy or some outcry online amongst some people. Why is she flying? Why is she doing this? Why is Diana so weak? So again, Diana's wish for Steve is costing her powers, and I kind of like that because it makes her seem a little bit more vulnerable. She has to get a little bit more creative. She's not as invincible. But the most gut-wrenching scene in the film, and again, really good stuff between her and Steve, scenes like that I really like, because again, you feel really bad for her because she just wanted this one thing back, but Steve has to step up and be the noble guy he is and be like, look, I had a good life. I got to meet you. I got to see the world again. But there's more out there than just me. You gotta have to let me go. You have to renounce your wish because it's for the benefit of other people. That just goes to show, like, that Steve Trevor is a very noble guy, and he's willing to do the right thing. So he does that again, but more people are still thinking of that scene with him possessing his body. Whatever, shouldn't have happened. Like that just seemed really dumb to me. You could have fixed a lot of issues by just having him back as himself. I think it would have worked just fine. You wouldn't have all this controversy about it. I think most people would be fine with that. But yeah, so again, she has to kind of let her wish go. She's doing all these things for all these years, and she just wants one thing. She just wants to be happy with Steve Trevor. But again, each time Steve has to sacrifice himself for the benefit of the world. And the scene where she has to walk away, and she's crying, and then you see her wounds kind of heal up. Like that was the best bit of acting I've seen from Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman all these films. I thought that was great. I thought, like, okay, this is really good. This is like shows that she has improved a lot as an actress from the first film and through Justice League. Like that scene right there, that's really good. And again, Gal Gadot, she's very good as Wonder Woman. Like you see her on screen, like she's this thing of beauty, and she just kind of has that warmth to her that you watch. Like when she smiles, you feel good in your heart, kind of like that's just her on-screen presence, and she's really good at that. And again, action bits this time around, there's some decent ones here. Like I think my favorite bit was where Steve fires a missile and Diana like has to use the lasso of truth. She latches onto the thing and swinging through the air like that, and she's catching somebody. I thought that was kind of cool. But again, there's some really bad looking action bits too, like when she's fighting Cheetah in their golden armor. I mean, it's not that exciting to watch. It's just, again, like it's just the way it's directed per se. Like again, action scenes can be pretty cool. Like it's just the hand-to-hand combat, it just wasn't gripping me as much. It was just kind of poorly CGI'd. Again, we've seen some good action in the DC Extended Universe. Superman vs. Zod, I think, is one of the best action sequences in movie history. It's the live-action Dragon Ball Z fight I always wanted. But this one, again, it's just like I've seen better within this universe. And I've seen better action bits even in the first Wonder Woman film compared to this one. And I just don't know why that is. You'd think they would have improved on that, but it just felt like kind of a step down. I don't think Zack Snyder's team was involved in the action bits in this movie, which I think is kind of a mistake. Because Snyder, say what you will about the guy, he knows how to craft some amazing action sequences. Like Man of Steel's final fight is epic. Batman vs. Superman, the warehouse fight sequence. And I'm excited to see what he does with his version of Justice League, because the Whedon version just felt like so anticlimactic in pretty much all aspects. There's like maybe little bits of Snyder, which are the only good parts in terms of action in that movie, but I'm excited to see what he kind of does with it. But anyways, so we got those aspects of the film. And again, my kind of issues with it, the inconsistency with the powers of it, it just kind of felt like underwhelming in terms of story compared to the first film. There's some good scenes in there. Steve Trevor, that bit was with him and Diana where they're on the plane. I thought that's like my favorite scene in the film because it's a quiet moment and you get a sense of wonder. I love that moment because, again, it just goes to show like that Steve's sacrifice kind of had meaning so the world could be kind of a better place, and you kind of see that a bit there. I did kind of have issues with how the continuity of this thing all works, because again, this is supposed to be set, this is a sequel to the first Wonder Woman film. Unless somebody's Flashpoint in the universe allowed this thing to happen, I don't know how this is all going to work, because I'm like, okay, Superman, like in Man of Steel, comes in. It's like the world's first time kind of seeing this thing. I mean, you can kind of buy it in the first Wonder Woman, so it's kind of like there's not as much evidence around. But by 1984, does nobody remember this stuff happening? You get what I'm saying? Like, the little world was just doing all these wishes, like, and did they just forget? Was it all just a dream that, like, there's video evidence of it out there? Like, how did this just, go off like that? I don't know. That's kind of where some of my gripes come in. Again, action bits not as good. It just doesn't feel as engaging of a story. Like, the first story felt more powerful than this one. There's good bits, but, there's stuff like that. Another thing I did like, too, when it comes to the score, Hans Zimmer did bring back A Beautiful Lie, which is, like, my favorite track on the Batman vs. Superman soundtrack, especially the piano music. And, again, it ties into the theme of the movie where Max was kind of led a lie himself. And when the music was playing, I'm like, I kind of a little fanboyed a little bit there too. So I'm like, oh, I love this track from Batman vs Superman. It's like where the Waynes were killed, and you kind of hear it too. Again, great musical choice by Hans Zimmer and Patty Jenkins and all of them. I really like that too. But again, Wonder Woman 84, I'm trying to think what else I can say about it. Action's not nearly as good as the first time around. The hokiness kind of can work at times, but it really just kind of sometimes takes you out of the movie. Too many plot threads going on. Cheetah herself feels really kind of forced into the third act, like it kind of comes out of nowhere. Maxwell Lord's powers are a bit inconsistent. There are some gripes with the Steve Trevor bit coming back, where I think they could have just put him back in his own physical body. You would have cut out that whole controversy bit, because again, like, you kind of feel bad for the one guy. Like, nothing, like, did he do something to get possessed? Like, it would be one thing if they were kind of like battling over like control. I thought that could have made it more interesting, but him just kind of being possession of some random guy, it's just like, okay, what are we doing here? But yeah, so Wonder Woman, and plus the movie too, it's 2.5 hours. It does feel like there's some bits missing, but the pacing of it too, it feels really long. And I don't mind long movies. It's all about how it's paced though. Like The Dark Knight is a 2.5 hour movie. You can't breathe in that film. Like, it's just constantly like you're on the edge of your seat the entire time. And I think with the 2.5 hours and all that, like, there's maybe a few moments where you're allowed to breathe, but that film just never lets up, and it's awesome. You don't feel the 2.5 hour length of The Dark Knight. This film, you really do feel the 2.5 hour length of Wonder Woman 1984. And I'm just kind of left the movie by the end of it. I'm like, okay, that kind of happened. I just didn't really feel like it left me like excited or wanting more kind of by the end of it. So, no, it left me wanting more. Like, it didn't leave me really excited, or just when I left the film and I finished it, I just kind of felt a bit underwhelmed by what I just saw. So yeah, how long have we been recording? I'm recording for about 22 minutes now, so I think I'm going to kind of cut this thing here. But I kind of just wanted to voice some grievances about the film, what kind of worked for me, what didn't. It isn't as good as the first film. It's just it's a big step down from the first film. It's not a terrible film. I think it's fine. I think it's worth checking out. If you got HBO Max, you can watch it then. You want to support theaters, I fully respect that. You can do that as well. But there's just enough to maybe recommend it for me, but it could have been a lot better. And I think the next film, they really need to work on the script a little bit more, because again, Cheetah's arc isn't really paid off. I think they're saving her for a third Wonder Woman film because she's still in the Cheetah attire by the end of it. So we'll see what happens there. And they did improve on the villains, so that was a good thing too. So hopefully the third, and plus, one thing I hate about these period piece films, especially if you showcase a character in modern times, you're very limited in terms of what you can do. There's like not enough suspense, because I'm like, okay, I know she's going to end up here. That's always been my gripe with prequels. It's just like, okay, can we just move on already? Unless they did some sort of time travel thing to kind of go back and change things, kind of like the first J.J. Abrams Star Trek film. But yeah, you can't really do anything with that. You just feel really limited. So I'm hoping with Wonder Woman 3, now that they're setting it in modern times, they can push the envelope further. I can feel a little bit more suspense for what's going to happen. And we can get a little bit more better. We can improve on the action. We can improve on a lot of other things. But overall consensus, I think Wonder Woman 84 is fine. Could have been a lot better, but it could have been a lot worse. So anyways, what are your thoughts on Wonder Woman 1984? Did you like it? Did you dislike it? Let me know in the comments section down below. Be sure to hit that bell for notifications, like this video, share it with everybody, subscribe for more contents. I think tomorrow I'm going to post one last video, and that'll be it for 2020. Holy shit, we're almost done. It's almost there. Almost done. Yay, shit like that. I'm excited. All right, that's all I got to say. Thank you all so much for watching. Take care now. Bye-bye then, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace.